Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Harsh Opinions, and I'll admit my heart's kind of racing, and I'm trying my best to not let my anxiety shoot through the roof right now because, well, I mean, this entire situation got incredibly out of hand that even I didn't see coming. Honestly, because of how much shit was hitting the fan, my emotions and headspace were practically running away together, and so with the help of my friends' love and support, I took a step back for a good couple of months to pick up all the pieces and put them back together. I'm just going to be transparent and say that if it wasn't for my friends and a few of my followers giving me reminders that everything's going to be okay and constantly listening to my blind bullshit rants, I probably would have made this entire situation a lot worse because of how mentally taxing it all was, which would have caused me to just pop off at anyone over anything. I want to give a quick shout out to my friends who stuck by me throughout this whole thing. Like, for real, thanks you guys. I really appreciate you being there for me even when I was at my lowest, and I can't thank you all enough. And I also can't thank you, my followers, enough for sticking by me even after the mistakes I've made in regards to this drama. It honestly means a whole lot to me. So again, thank you. Thank you so very much. Now that I've said all that, I'm going to be keeping it real with you guys. No trying to be haha funny to make light of all of this, no passive aggressiveness or shifting blame, no letting myself ramble about unrelated things, no bullshit. So, with all of this in mind, I'm going to do the best I can to explain myself and apologize for what I'm about to address. And if at the end of all of this, you still don't forgive me or you feel like this apology isn't good enough, then that's absolutely fine by me and I will not hold that against you. So, the first issue that I'm going to be talking about is my unbalanced criticisms regarding both parties, Toby and Kai and Omnia. Originally, I had thought I made it clear that I was also against Toby and that I think neither parties are in the right. However, because of the way I went about things, which I will also address soon, and not discussing all of the issues I had with Toby, along with Toby promoting my video, that has led many people to think otherwise. That was definitely a fault on my behalf, and I do apologize for not balancing my criticisms more appropriately. If anything, I should have taken more time to digest this entire thing by doing more in-depth research, talking to both parties involved, and just not jumping in headfirst the way I did. While I can say that I was actually witnessing the entire thing going down, there were a few things that I was seeing Kai and Omnia were doing that just seemed a little suspect to me, if that makes any sense. And not only that, but Kai's video regarding the situation on Twitter didn't exactly make me feel any better about the whole thing. In a way, my intention was to give a bystander's perspective on the entire thing, whereas I was fully against Toby, but there were some issues I was noticing with Kai and Omnia and the way they were presenting themselves throughout. I had no intention to hurt them or slander them, nor did I have any intention to make their fan base turn against them or for anyone to gang up on them. Believe it or not, I was and still am a fellow fan of Kai's, and I wanted nothing more than to try to help him. My intention was to, again, speak on a bystander's perspective at the information we already knew of at the time. I also feel the need to address the fact that Toby promoted my video. I'm going to be transparent again and say that during the process of the video, I haven't spoken to either side of the drama, meaning I didn't take the time to talk to either Kai, Omnia, or Toby out of potentially ending up being biased. But, I guess that ended up happening anyways, and I'm truly sorry for not keeping the consistency of being neutral. That was also another fault on my part. Then right after my video was posted to the public, I spoke with Toby privately in DMs because a good friend of mine explained she wanted to speak with me. I asked them if Toby was fully aware that I was not on her side on this entire drama, and they said yes, so I decided to let her hit me up. I will not show the DMs out of respect for her privacy, and because a lot of our conversations happened in calls. I recall Toby asking me if she could promote my video, and at the time, I saw Kai had promoted me as well, which then gave me the thought that if both ends of the drama were promoting my video, then it wouldn't really be that much of a problem. So for that, I apologize for any confusion that I have brought to anyone when Toby promoted my video, and I will gladly take full responsibility for that. I am saying this because I want to bring up the fact that Toby and I are not friends. If anything, we're loose acquaintances, and even I use that term very loosely. Now, I am going to say this. Yes, I actually did watch all videos regarding Toby by both Kai and Omnia, and I will say that their criticisms against her were very solid and she absolutely deserved them. No way in hell am I denying that. However, at the time when I was watching how Kai and Omnia were acting, along with their usage of wording in certain areas, to me, it didn't exactly make them look any better. When it all boils down to it, I think we can all agree that the beef over Twitter could have been resolved privately. Had Toby just hit Omnia up in the DMs and tried to talk things out with her instead of publicly lying on Twitter, then maybe this whole thing would have been resolved and this gigantic mess wouldn't have happened. Not only that, but had I actually taken the time to speak with Kai and Omnia, then I wouldn't have been such a shithead about this whole thing. So since I've mentioned this, I'm sure some of you might be wondering about my thoughts on Toby, since I'll admit I pretty much skimmed through my criticisms towards Toby in the beginning of my video, along with speaking out defenses on her behalf, which is one of the main things that caused my criticisms towards Toby to fall apart. With that being said, I'm going to bring up the 4 major problems I had with Toby during that time before more information came out. And those 4 are the following. The bullshit apology that wasn't really much of an apology, more like Toby unnecessarily puffing up her chest and using her BPD as an excuse, drawing Todoroki and Usagi in not safe for work situations, her ignorant comments in regards to the trans community, and her conversation with Omnia regarding racism versus racial insensitivity. Which, woof, yeah. But before I get into it, I also feel the need to bring up my opinion regarding Omnia leaking the DMs. Now, I know that I didn't exactly do a good job of expressing my general problem regarding DM leaks, so I feel it's important I bring this up so that you guys can know my general stance. Now, here's the thing. I am actually completely fine with DMs being leaked to the public. I personally find it acceptable to leak DMs for a very good reason, such as someone admitting to committing a crime or thinking about committing a crime, lying about what the conversation entailed, and just overall doing very scummy, underhanded behavior. However, say for instance private DMs are leaked to the public and it is done out of malicious intent, then that's when I'm going to have a problem. And what I mean by that is someone leaking DMs for the sole purpose of slander, making a mountain out of a molehill, twisting words to make the situation seem like something else. I think you know what I mean. Now, I will say this. I had tunnel vision in regards to this entire drama, and I ended up ignoring the fact that the reason why Omnia leaked the DMs in the first place was because she needed to defend herself from Toby publicly lying about her. This was definitely my fault for not taking that into account, and it was not only unprofessional for me to go off the rails and jump into conclusions before I had the facts for everything, but it was very fucked up of me to bitch about the DMs being leaked when, had I just looked closely at what was right in front of me, I would have realized that they were leaked for a genuinely good reason. I'm honestly pretty disgusted with myself for disregarding Omnia the way I did, and I'm truly sorry for that. This tunnel vision that I tend to have when I get overly emotional is definitely something I need to get to work on. Because over time, I've begun to notice that I have a tendency to do this, which is really no excuse at all. I'm hoping to find ways of improving from this problem, and if there are any suggestions, please let me know. Every ounce of advice will definitely help. Alright, so after saying my piece of the DM leaks, let's get to the first problem with Toby. Her apology. I'm just going to be upfront and say that was probably the worst apology I have ever watched. Like, maybe there were a couple of things I can understand with what Toby was trying to say, but the issue is mainly the fact that it not only sounded like she wasn't taking this as seriously as she should have been, but also because it sounded like it was nothing but excuses. It didn't help that the opening was colder than a witch's tit that already left a sour taste in my mouth.
Anyways, this video is not for the people who like to sit in little circles, ferociously and furiously typing up college essay length comments and videos telling somebody how they don't adopt every moral that I personally have myself, therefore you are a bad person and I need to tell them in every single way. And this video is also definitely not for the people who want me to sit here on my knees begging and crying, saying how everything I've ever done in my life is wrong and I'm so sorry, I will never do it again. Every single view that I have is bad, and you know what? Instead, I should adopt all of your views of the world and how you feel things should be. Because, to be completely honest, I don't really care about those kinds of people. They're not really going to change their minds. They're bitter, cynical people, and I have no patience for them. Who I do want to talk to, and who this video really is for, are for my current fans. The ones who know me, the ones who support me, and the ones who waited to hear my side before making their decisions. And my side is just basically I didn't do anything wrong because, guys, I fucking critiqued Creepshow. I can't do anything wrong. No, I'm just fucking kidding. Can you imagine? This is an actual serious video. I'm sorry, but can you imagine if I just did that and just fucking bounced? I'm sorry. Okay, this is like actually serious. Okay, so.
But she didn't even try to sort things out between Kai and Omnia privately and practically went off on tangents that just dragged everything out. It was just excuse after excuse, and it got to the point where I couldn't even finish the whole thing as much as I wanted to. While I can commend her for growing a pair of tits and stepping up to at least trying, I think, I can't bring myself to really accept her explanation. And besides, it's not even in my right to accept it anyways. There's also the whole Shane Dawson thing, which, I'm sorry, but no. Just no. I don't understand how anyone can still support someone like Shane after everything he's done. I'm not going to explain what Shane Dawson has done because I feel as though it's been talked about to hell and back, which is the reason why I didn't get into it in my original video. However, if you guys are ever interested in hearing about what's going on with Shane Dawson if you are unaware, I definitely recommend checking out Creepshow Art's video regarding the topic and D'Angelo Wallace. Those videos will be linked down in the description as they both cover the topic of Shane Dawson tremendously. And in this situation, it's already been explained why Toby supporting Shane Dawson was bad, so I didn't go into detail about it because I didn't want to simplify points that were explained rather flawlessly. I also felt it wouldn't be right to speak over people of color and their thoughts about the issue. However, if I have to give my thoughts about it, it would be this. When it comes to Shane Dawson, I don't really think it's appropriate for Toby to be accepting Shane's apology when it was meant for people of color, much like how it is not my right to accept Toby's, explanation, I'll just call it that. While I understand wanting to support a creator you enjoy, you can't keep making excuses for their behavior, and you can't always just ignore or look over the shit they've done just because you support them. If anything, choosing to be ignorant of their actions and accepting apologies that were not meant for you is only going to enable such behavior and therefore not bring any amount of change or a chance of betterment. Honestly, if you're going to be supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, then it would definitely be in your best interest to not support Shane Dawson. People of color are not toys that you can fuck around with, nor are they butt ends of your jokes. They are people too. And in this country, they deserve to live in freedom and safety, not live in fear and be made a mockery of. And that's all I really have to say in regards to Toby, Shane Dawson, and her bullshit explanation. Now on to the next concern, which is her drawings of Todoroki and Usagi in, interesting situations. I will say this, at the time of making my video, I initially thought that she had only drawn the Todoroki picture and was completely unaware of the picture she had drawn of Usagi. Finding out that she drew Usagi like that, yeah, no, fuck that noise. Nope. I'm sorry, but what in the hell? I mean, come on, at least do research to understand a character. I understand that sometimes you're unfamiliar with the character, but if you're thinking of drawing literal porn of them, at least take the initiative to research their age. I mean, hell, that's what I had to do for Kaiba and the Chaz, for fuck's sakes. Even if you were to tell me, oh, but they're aged up. I'm sorry, but looking at their physical appearance and comparing them to the pictures that were drawn of them by Toby, they don't really look aged up to me. At all. Next on our list of bullshit with Toby, we have ourselves the ignorant comments in regards to the trans community. Now, I don't want to speak out for the trans community since I am a cis woman and I feel it wouldn't be right of me to be speaking on the trans community behalf, as it would only take their voices away and possibly end up taking away the impact of the issue. And so, I invited a friend that is willing to join in on this video to speak on this matter, as I feel it is only right for a member of the trans community to speak out about this. The floor is all yours, Casey.
Thank you so much, Harsh, for giving me a chance to speak on this subject. As someone who is a part of the trans community, I've been wanting to talk about this ever since I've seen these horrendous comments, but had a hard time due to my mental health regarding the subject and the fear of backlash. I want to go ahead and clarify that I do not think Toby is inherently transphobic, but I do think she is heavily ignorant and does not want to learn, which I'm going to address in a bit. We all seen the screenshots of her snapping at a trans person who was simply just trying to explain that they felt uncomfortable with her referring to a trans male's chest as, in her own word, big milky titties, and how she had the audacity as a cis woman to try and gatekeep their feelings on the matter, even though the original commenter was just asking Toby not to use that phrasing towards trans males. Their intent behind the comment was to offer Toby a more approachable usage of language to prevent triggering gender dysphoria within trans viewers. The reason why the commenter said this, because of a lot of trans males feel gender dysphoria in the chest area pre-transition. And what Toby had said could potentially trigger a trans male's dysphoria. Hell, in my initial video that I was going to make on the subject, I had such a hard time reading that line. I had to take constant breaks because, similar to trans males, dysphoria surrounding my chest as well. Then, when releasing her video addressing the controversy, she did not initially address it, which I saw as a red flag, but later proceeded to make a tweet longer apologizing for the comment, even though she should have addressed that since the beginning, since that was one of the major issues people had with her. Even though I had problems with her apology because of the way she worded things, I and so many others were going to give her a benefit of the doubt until I found herself contradicting herself and try to justify what she originally said. What had happened was, a fan of Toby's on Twitter, I will blur out their name because I do not want to drag them into this, said Toby being, quote, racist and, quote, transphobic is a huge misunderstanding. Toby answered this tweet with, it is. I said in my video I no longer support the person they were talking about, and it's not okay to assume that I have all the same values as someone else does because I watch their content. She proceeded to say this. Also, I'm not transphobic. I said in a video that I wore a chest binder pretty often because I have big boobs and I feel more functional when my breasts are more secure. I made a lighthearted comment in my video saying trans males who still have big milkies like me understand 1 through 2 how it feels when you put a binder on. I said this because most trans males are going to be able to relate of the feeling of growing up with all this weight on our chest, then wearing a binder for the first time before they're able to afford surgery, like sparkle emoji, smiley emoji, sparkle emoji, 2 out of 2. First of all, Toby, the fact that you're saying it again is gross and demeaning, especially knowing the fact that so many people within the trans community have told you why saying this was a issue in the first place. You're using the same wording towards a trans male's chest again. You know how triggering that is to someone's dysphoria? As someone who is a pre-transitioning non-binary and currently struggles with gender dysphoria in the chest area, this is really disheartening and uncomfortable. Second of all, why are you trying to justify yourself to a fan of all things? They're already taking your side on the situation. But it was a lighthearted comment, or it was a joke. It doesn't matter. She doesn't have to deal with the repercussions of triggering someone's gender dysphoria with her words. She doesn't have to deal with a depressive episode that always come in whenever we're reminded that we are imposters in our own body. We are not wasting our breath when we tell you that something is making us uncomfortable or it's triggering our gender dysphoria. It literally cost $0 to show some damn respect to the trans community. We are human beings, just like you are. It doesn't help that gender dysphoria is one of the highest causes of suicides for many of our trans siblings. She should have known better. She had a few trans people explain the negative effect of saying that in her comment section and in response to her apology. Also, I know that a few people called her out privately as well. You would think after so many people telling her what she did wrong and why, she wouldn't be trying to justifying herself or repeating the very thing that got her into trouble in the first place. I think the reason why she doesn't realize it is because she thinks trans people are just being overly sensitive or getting offended for no apparent reason, and it doesn't help that one of her friends, who is a trans woman, is literally coddling her during this drama, which could possibly make her think that it's just people being sensitive. Which, Fuchsia Butters, you're not helping her in this situation. Instead, you're enabling this form of toxic behavior. As a fellow trans person, I am very disappointed in you and your overall behavior during this whole situation. As someone who used to look up to you, it's really disheartening that you're so willing to let your friends friend get away with saying such words like this. I understand she is your friend, but that does not mean you should let her get away with saying something hurtful towards trans people, even if she didn't have a malicious intent behind it. Just because you as a trans person are fine with such phrasing, that does not mean that other trans people are gonna share the same sentiment, especially when it heavily depends on the context. If you can be so open-minded about Neko's argument of the word trap being considered a slur, then you could be open-minded about this. It shouldn't be considered a exception just because she's a close friend of yours. Even you need to give some respect to yourself when it comes to your friendship. Again, I am very disappointed in you. So what are my final thoughts? Toby should take a break from the internet as a whole and try to work on herself. Take some time to educate herself, perhaps work on her disorder to where it becomes easier to manage. At the end of the day, I can't change Toby Majestic's, whether that be her mindset or actions. That's something that she's going to have to put effort into working on, which isn't gonna happen if her friends are going to keep her in a echo chamber of doing no wrong. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I don't think she's transphobic, but from a lot of her actions, it's clear to me that she doesn't care about trans people or what we have to say. If she actually listened to us from the get-go, she wouldn't be in this deep mess. I wash my hands of Toby Majestic from this point onward. I'm not gonna care what happened afterwards. Thank you again, Harsh, for giving me this opportunity. I love you a lot, you bitch.
Love you too, Casey. So now after this, I'm sure you might be wondering my general stance and feelings regarding the subject. So let me put it this way and basically reiterate what Casey had said. Toby, when a trans person explains to you how a certain wording can affect or damage their mental health, it would be in your best interest to listen to them. They are not just telling you this for the sake of their health, and they are not special snowflakes. They're people too. I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure if you were in that situation where you tried to explain to someone why talking about a certain subject triggers your BPD, and you try to explain to them how they should use more reclusive language so this doesn't happen to other viewers, and they straight up tell you in your own words, go pull a muscle reaching someplace else, you wouldn't like it either, now would you? As a fellow supporter of the LGBTQ+ community, I have very heavy respect for those who are gay, lesbian, ace, trans, and all the like, especially considering the fact that I recently just came out as a demisexual. And just seeing that disrespect just absolutely boils my blood. But I believe it's time we get to the final problem, which is her conversation with Omnia regarding racism versus racial insensitivity. Now, I know that this is something I need to heavily address, and I promise I will get to what you're expecting very soon. For now, I want to give my thoughts about this problem in particular before we move on. I took the time to reread the conversation, and I'll say that after speaking with Omnia and getting her side of things, the conversation now looks uncomfortable, and I am just overall appalled by it all. Now, I do know what the story was that Omnia had blurred out, and I'm not going to speak upon it because it's not my story to tell, but at the end of all of this was honestly not really an appropriate conversation topic. At least, not at this time. Now, had Toby and Omnia gotten to know each other a bit better, then maybe I would have let this slide, I guess? However, what bothers me much more about this is the fact that, while yes, Toby did ask permission to speak upon this, she didn't inform Omnia what that perspective was going to be about, which left Omnia curious as to what she could be talking about and leading to Omnia accepting. My opinion about this has changed a lot now, and I'm truly sorry for being ignorant in regards to this conversation, dismissing it, and initially thinking it wasn't much of a big deal. After what Omnia had told me, it actually explains to me a lot why both Kai and Omnia were upset by her talking about this, and I plan on sticking besides both of them in regards to that. Toby, if you ever come across this video, I'm going to say this, and I'm sorry that I'm being this upfront with you now, but this is my way of making up for not being as honest and upfront with you sooner. While I did understand where you were trying to come from after hearing your perspective out, you were still in the wrong, whether you want to admit it or not. I don't want you to continue falling under the assumption that I was on your side, or at the very least, I was defending you. But I'm going to be real and say I never was from the start. While I can understand how my usage of words might have made it seem so, in actuality, I was fully aware of what you were doing, what you were saying, and I should have made it much more clear that I was not having it. I'm sorry for not telling you this sooner, but since I'm being honest here, there's a couple reasons why I faded away from speaking with you. One of which is the fact that I just wasn't vibing with you, as in, I wasn't feeling much of a friendly connection. When I don't feel much of a connection with someone, I just don't stick around, even if you were to contact me first and try to connect with me. And two, because I was kind of scared of you. I'm sorry, but some of the behaviors you presented in calls made me feel unsafe, which is why I backed away. And I'm the kind of person who listens to their gut when it tells me something's not right. While I am glad that I stuck around to at least listen to your side of things, at the end of all of this, I've made my decision to stick with Kai and Omnia. But even after all of this, I don't hate you, nor do I hold any sort of malicious feelings towards you, and if anything, I want you to succeed. I want you to at least try to make up for all the wrongs that have been dealt, and try your best to grow and get better as a person, and maybe even get a better handle of your BPD. I can't imagine what it's like having to struggle with such a disorder every day, and I'm truly sorry you have to live with it. But please, just at least try. That's all I want, is for you to try. Be honest with yourself a bit more, and maybe even take the time to understand your disorder to get a much better handle of it. You want the audience to understand your disorder, but you haven't made the effort yourself to try and improve from your behavior that you claim is caused by your BPD as far as I'm aware. You are fully aware that you have BPD, but you do absolutely nothing about it. I also don't appreciate the fact that you compared BPD to depression, because I'm not sure if you know this, but that can cause the wrong impression on the disorder, and at the worst case, cause a stigma surrounding that disorder, which can cause harm on those who actually have depression and people's understanding on what the disorder is really like. I don't know you that well, so maybe after everything I've said, I didn't have a right to speak on. But even after all of this, I still hold some concern for you and want to wish you the best. And that's all I really have to say to you. So, now that we're on the subject about the racism versus racial insensitivity conversation, I believe it's time I get to addressing this now. Mainly because it just wouldn't be right to prolong not talking about this, and because I don't exactly know when will be a more appropriate time on this video. I am going to be addressing and explaining two things at once, which will be my poor choice in wording and the fact that I should have at least discussed my feelings and opinions regarding the racism topic in the conversation. I'll admit, I'm a little nervous, but here goes nothing. So, as most of you have been made aware of, I am biracial. While I wasn't really comfortable revealing my race the way I did, I felt as though I had to so people wouldn't continue getting the wrong idea that I was white. And while I do fall under white passing, I still wanted to at least make it public knowledge that I also have Hispanic blood in me. However, and this is a big however, just because I am biracial, that still does not excuse my poor choice in wording and the blatant ignorance I have shown in my video, and I just want to say I am very, truly sorry for those who I have affected with my words, including Kai and Omnia. I had absolutely no intention to hurt anyone with my poor wording, nor did I have any intention to try to silence Kai and Omnia for speaking on the matter. If anything, when I was scripting for my video around that part, I was having a bit of a struggle in deciding what to say. On one hand, I thought about giving my opinion. On the other, I wanted to just comment on the DMs and what was said. And then there was a third choice, where I skipped the part altogether. The third option I immediately threw out the window because I didn't want to cut context, so by that point, I was left with two other options. To which I thought the second option was the best decision, despite the fact that it probably would have been a lot better to have at least stated an opinion regarding it. And I thought it was a good decision for two reasons. For one, I felt I wasn't fully educated enough to speak on the matter, and therefore didn't have a right to voice an opinion about it, especially since I always knew that racism has always been a struggle for people of color. And the second reason was because I wanted to show respect to Kai and Omnia and allow them to speak upon the subject Toby decided to bring up in the DMs. While at the time I was ignorant of the full details of her opinion regarding the topic, I didn't want to take Kai and Omnia's voices away, for I felt they had every right to speak upon it, which explains why I said what I said. To quote, I really don't want to get into the topic of the race comments because that's a whole other can of worms that didn't need to be fucking opened. Yeah, that line in particular. I have grown to despise that very line, despite knowing the intent behind it, and I want to stress again how sorry I am that I have hurt anyone by that very statement alone. It was not my intention to hurt anyone from that statement, and rather my original intent was to show that I was backing off and trying my best to not cause any problems. For I felt like if I did talk about it with the little knowledge that I had, I was scared to cause problems, and I was scared to take away their voices if I were to speak an opinion about the matter. It's unfortunate that whenever I think too much about a particular subject that I am not too comfortable to talk about, I do my best to tiptoe around it with the intent to not cause any issues, and unfortunately, I end up getting scrambled when it comes to my words, which makes it easy for me to dish out a very poor choice in wording. However, it is still not an excuse for what I still chose to say. After all, that video was scripted, and even then, I should have thought about that choice of wording and went about it much more respectfully. That was no accident, and I don't plan on making it sound like it was. It was simply a very poor choice of wording that was looked over by my own negligence, and I take full responsibility for that. I have no intention of excusing it. There were much better ways to word that sentence alone, as for example, I'm not comfortable talking about this, so I will skip this portion and let Kai and Omnia speak about this. Or even, I feel as though I don't have a right to speak on the subject matter due to my lack of knowledge regarding this, so I will let Omnia and Kai have this one. Just something. Anything better than what I originally said. I tried to show respect in the worst way possible, and it was my fault entirely to allow that sentence to be looked over and still say it without even realizing what that could have meant due to the context that was presented. So I will say again, I'm really, truly sorry for the poor wording and not being more clear with my intention behind that sentence. And if you still don't forgive me, then I completely understand, and as I said before in the beginning, I will not hold that against you. And now that I have discussed this, I feel it is now time to move on to 2 more problems of my video. So the next problem that I will be addressing and apologizing for is my theorizing and speculative arguments, i.e., I was basically putting words in Kai's mouth. Yeah, that was very immature of me, and I do apologize for the way I structured my points the way I did. At the time of watching that video, I was reading way too much into what Kai was saying, and because of the presentation, I was under the impression that there were a few points of his where I thought he was trying to imply something, which has not only led to speculative and bold claims, but has also led me to speak defenses on Toby's behalf. That is another fault on my part, because had I done the right thing and gotten in contact with Kai to at least get to know his perspective in regards of that video, I wouldn't have made those speculative points in the first place. And I wouldn't have theorized that Kai or Omnia were up to something shady behind the scenes or anything crazy like that. So for that, I am very sorry for putting Kai and Omnia under a bad spotlight. And honestly, my attitude in that video didn't make it any better, which leads to the final problem that definitely needs to be addressed. There is no excuse for how I chose to act in that video, and if anything, I practically acted like a pissy child while I was under the assumption that I was just playing my persona role. Looking back on that video, I wasn't playing as my persona. I was straight up being a petty asshole. A petty, hypocritical asshole actually, now that I think about it. Because in that very same video where I criticized Kai and Omnia for being petty, I myself was being petty. I mean, hell, the way I titled my video, the way I titled the screenshots, and even my description showed that I was being a real big hypocrite. My general persona was supposed to be someone where, while yes, it's going to be blunt and even a bit dickish, and even take the piss and clown on someone for comedic purposes and when it's well deserved, there are still valid points of criticism that one could take and learn from, and general issues that should be addressed in a mature manner. But instead of saying anything constructive, I was destructive. Coming at Kai and Omnia with unnecessary low blows, ad hominems, speculative and petty remarks, hypocrisy, the list goes on. And even with this persona in mind, this does not excuse anything, because even if you are trying to play as a character, that is still you, and it is still your actions underneath that mask. I apologize for how childishly petty I was acting in that video, and I apologize for my biased arguments despite the attempt of being neutral. No video that is made by someone is an accident, and therefore, as a content creator, especially a commentator, it was my responsibility to do research and take everyone's sides into account. And instead of doing my job as a commentator properly, I instead went off the rails and jumped head first, only taking what I was seeing and basing my opinion solely on that. I will admit that during my 2 months of being silent, I was very emotional and all over the place, to say the least. I was angry. I was upset. I went on blind bullshit rants to my friends over and over again, practically being defensive and continuing to be stubborn and convincing myself that I was in the right. However, that changed after I had my interview with Spoctor. After talking with Spockter, I took my time to rewatch my video and, well, let's just say I was not happy with myself. At all. I was not happy with how I chose to handle the situation, I was not happy with my general attitude and the fact that I acted like a total asshole, and I was especially not happy at the fact that I chose to blindly look over the evidence that was presented because it had become apparent to me that I had grown a hero complex. What I thought was the right thing to do turned out to be the decision that only made things worse, and instead of being neutral that I claimed and was genuinely trying to be, my arguments and my blind assumptions led me to choose Toby's side, without even looking further into the situation or even asking Kai and Omnia for context. I originally thought that I only needed to apologize and address the can of worms statement, but over time I started to realize that there was much more I needed to apologize for other than a miswording. Which is why I took more time to think and cool off before contacting Kai and Omnia to personally apologize to them before making this video, since I had realized that out of everyone, out of this entire drama, they were the most affected and deserved an apology, as someone who had personally affected them. I feel responsible for causing the drama to get so out of hand the way it did, and for that I'm very, very sorry for causing nothing but trouble for everyone involved in the situation. I am willing to take this blame on my shoulders if it means that it'll make things right for everyone, and I mean that with all my heart. If there's a lesson that I can take out of all of what has transpired, it would be this. Just because something feels like it's the right thing to do, that doesn't mean that it is the right thing to do. I will do my utmost best to not make this mistake again, and if I do, please do not hesitate to call me out. I appreciate all the criticism I have received, and I do appreciate you guys hearing me out. Now, before I end this video, I want to give a quick little shout out to both Kai and Omnia, and all I want to say is thank you. Thank you both so much, to both Kai and Omnia, for giving me the chance to hear me out when I didn't deserve it. Thank you both so much for those amazing and fun calls we had together over Discord while we were discussing our stories, and I am truly grateful to call you both my friends. It honestly makes me happy to see that despite everything that has happened throughout this entire drama, I made 2 new friends, and all 3 of us brought happy endings to our chapters. I hope to continue being your friend in the future, and I hope you both continue receiving the love and support that I know that both of you deserve more than anything. For those of you who haven't yet, please go check out both Kai Weiss and Omnia and give them a subscribe, or even a message in their community tab, or any video of theirs that you enjoy to let them know that they are loved. Thanks to both Kai and Omnia, I also learned that any opportunity in making a friend is a welcoming one. So with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again in the next video. See you later.